there are television shows, and then there are television shows that leave a mark so deep that the people inside them carry the weight of it for the rest of their lives. Lost in Space, which first aired on CBS on September 15, 1965, was one of those rare productions. On the surface, it looked like a colorful, campy romp through the cosmos. A family in silver suits, a bumbling villain, and a robot with accordion arms warning everyone of danger at the top of its mechanical lungs. But underneath all of that, behind every foam, rubber, alien, and spray-painted prop, was a story far stranger and far more human than anything that ever made it onto the screen. And most fans, even devoted ones who watched every single one of 83 episodes, never fully understood what they were actually watching. The first thing most fans never knew is that the show they watched was not the show Irwin Allen originally created. Before there was a robot, before there was a Dr. Smith, before there was a single scheming glance or a single melodramatic cry of, "Oh, the pain," there was a completely different pilot. Allen filmed it in late 1964 under the title No Place to Hide, and the project cost approximately $689,000, making it one of the most expensive television pilots ever produced at that time. The pilot was financed with backing from CBS, 20th Century Fox, and, in one of Hollywood history's more unlikely financial arrangements, both Groucho Marx and Red Skelton. The story was straightforward and entirely serious. The Robinson family was knocked off course by a meteor storm and landed on an alien planet where they had to survive. There was no villain. There was no comedy. There was no robot. Both Robinson parents held advanced degrees. The children were prodigies. It played like a genuine survival film, tense and grounded. Will Robinson sat around a campfire. The family used intelligence rather than spectacle to navigate their situation. When Allen screened the pilot for CBS executives, something unexpected happened. The executives at CBS giggled all the way through the screening of the pilot. They bought the series immediately, but they also handed Allen a list of demands. They wanted a recurring antagonist to generate weekly conflict. They wanted a robot. They wanted something children could grab onto and love. Allen agreed to all of it. The serious, carefully crafted piece of science fiction he had believed in was locked away. Nearly 80% of the original pilot footage was eventually cut up and used across the first 5 broadcast episodes, with Dr. Smith and the robot conveniently written as having stayed behind at the ship during those scenes, explaining their absence from footage that predated their existence by nearly a year. The theme music was handed to a young composer named Johnny Williams, the same Johnny Williams who would decades later, under the name John Williams, write the scores for Star Wars, Jaws, and Indiana Jones. The second thing most fans never understood is just how completely one actor remade this show from the inside out. Jonathan Harris was the last cast member added to Lost in Space, joining after everyone else had already been signed. He had been born Jonathan Karasukin in the Bronx, the son of Russian immigrants, and had built himself an entirely new identity from scratch, changing his surname at 17 against his father's objections, earning a pharmacy degree he never used, fabricating an acting resume, and talking his way into a career that eventually spanned Broadway, The Twilight Zone, and well over 100 stage productions. When Irwin Allen offered him the role of Dr. Zachary Smith, Harris looked at the character as written and immediately recognized a trap. Smith was a cold-blooded spy who sabotaged the mission and was designed to be eliminated within 5 episodes. A character that ends in 5 episodes is not a career. So, Harris began rewriting. Midway through the first season, Harris began to rewrite his own dialogue to add more comedy because he felt that his strength was in portraying a comic villain. He did not ask permission at first. He arrived on set with entirely new pages of dialogue constructed overnight. Bill Mumy, who played Will Robinson and was still a child at the time, later described in vivid detail exactly how Harris operated on set. According to Mumy, when they would rehearse a scene together, Harris would suddenly intervene mid-read. And he'd have a line, and then in the script I'd have my reply, and he'd say, no, dear boy, before you say that, the robot will say this, and then you'll deliver your line. Every scene was quietly rebuilt so that every road led back to Smith. The cowardly eye rolls, the invented complaints about his back, and the cascade of alliterative insults aimed at the robot, bubble-headed booby, nickel-plated nincompoop, clamoring clod, none of it appeared in any original script. Harris constructed all of it himself, sitting up nights engineering a character that the writers had never imagined. Bill Mumy later said, "He truly single-handedly created the character of Dr. Zachary Smith that we know, this man we love to hate, a coward who would cower behind the little boy." By the time Irwin Allen fully understood what had happened, the fan mail was making the situation impossible to reverse. Within weeks of the show's premiere in September 1965, Harris had all but stolen the show from co-stars Guy Williams, June Lockhart, Marta Kristen, and Mark Goddard. Allen later publicly acknowledged it, saying openly that Smith had not been created as a comedy character, but that Jonathan Harris had dictated what the character should become. Harris also negotiated himself a special guest star credit on every one of the 83 episodes, reportedly the first time that specific billing structure had ever appeared on American television. But Allen's public praise concealed a private cost, because the actor who had been hired as the show's actual leading man was watching his entire role quietly disappear. Guy Williams came to Lost in Space as one of the most recognizable faces on American television. For years, as Zorro on Disney had made him a genuine star. He was tall, fencing trained since childhood, and genuinely excited about playing Professor John Robinson, the brilliant mission commander meant to anchor the series. Although overshadowed extensively by the nefariously campy antics of Jonathan Harris's Dr. Smith character, Williams nevertheless provided a necessary strong anchor to the family show. But the anchor, over time, became invisible. By season 2, the Dr. Smith and robot storylines had expanded so thoroughly that Williams was reduced to delivering a handful of lines per episode while standing in the background. Mark Goddard, who played pilot Don West, later confirmed this directly, saying the show had moved toward the robot and Smith, and that there were hard feelings from Guy especially. Harris himself acknowledged the damage, calling it very difficult for an actor to endure, which was a remarkable admission from the man who had caused it and showed no intention of stopping. Williams filled his idle hours on set listening to classical music, reading about astronomy, and playing chess. After Lost in Space ended and his career began to wind down, Guy did something remarkable. He ended up moving to Argentina, where the people still remembered him fondly for playing Zorro. The country had never let go of what he had meant to them. When Williams first visited Argentina in 1973, he was quite taken by the admiration and fascination the Argentines expressed for him and his signature character. He eventually retired to Recoleta, an upscale neighborhood of Buenos Aires, and spent his final years there. Sadly, that solitude resulted in his seemingly disappearing in 1989, when it was discovered he had died in his apartment a week earlier from a ruptured brain aneurysm. He was 65 years old. Nobody had known because he had been living alone and no one had checked on him. The man who was supposed to lead a television series had died undiscovered. In a country that valued him more than his own industry ever had, the third thing most fans never realized is what was happening inside the robot suit the entire time they were enjoying the show. Bob May stumbled into the Lost in Space audition almost by accident, happening to be on the 20th Century Fox lot when someone directed him to see Irwin Allen. The audition was brutally straightforward. Allen promised May, "If you can fit in the suit, you've got the job." When May exited the suit for the first time, he was cut and bleeding, but very happy that he had gotten the part. That combination, physical pain accepted without complaint in exchange for employment, would define the next 3 years of his life. Initially, the bellows-covered legs of the robot were articulated and moved separately by the actor inside, but the metal edges cut Bob May's legs, so changes had to be made. Even after modifications, the experience of working inside the costume remained genuinely grueling. The suit was made of metal and fiberglass, weighed significantly, and under studio lights became intensely hot. May performed every physical gesture that made the robot one of television's most beloved characters. The arm waves, the urgency, the warmth that somehow radiated through all that machinery. and did so for all 83 episodes without a single on-screen credit during the original run. May and his wife Judith lost their home during the November 2008 San Fernando Valley wildfires, which destroyed their mobile home park. 2 months later, May died of congestive heart failure. He was 69. What defined his later years was not bitterness at the industry that had profited from his labor without properly crediting him, but something far more generous. He became one of the most beloved figures on the science fiction convention circuit, famously staying at signing tables until every single fan had their moment, no matter how long it required. The man made invisible by a production company chose to make absolutely certain that no fan ever felt invisible standing in front of him. And yet, in spite of everything, the displaced leading man, the uncredited performer sweating inside a metal shell, the canceled show, the news of cancellation received not from a producer or a network executive, but by reading a small notice in the entertainment section of a morning newspaper, something about this production refused to become just a sad story. Bill Mumy, Angela Cartwright, and Marta Kristen, who played the three Robinson children, remained close decades later, proving the deep bond formed despite behind-the-scenes struggles and emotional farewells. In March 2026, Mumy posted a photograph of the three of them together and captioned it simply, "Judy, Penny, and Will Robinson spotted on Earth." 60 years after the show first aired, they were still showing up for one another.